With version 2.0 in the chill season update, in addition to 3 brand new weapons I've talked about already, we got 10 weapon kits for existing ones. So today, I want to not only analyze just how good these kits are, but rank them from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is from the perspective of a pro player who's been at top level for a while, meaning it is a team perspective, not solo queue, where pretty much anything could work. And of course, use whatever you like and don't take these rankings too much to heart. With that being said, subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Well, in dead last, and the only weapon I would consider low tier, we have the brand new Dapple's Nouveau. I'll start with the positives. I think Torpedo is a great sub for the weapon, being able to poke longer distance threats or roll for combo potential, and Dapple has really needed a bomb. So what's the issue here? Well, it does have Reef Slider, which despite a damage buff, is still the worst special in the game right now, but that on its own wouldn't put it this low. The actual problem isn't anything to do with Dapple, it's the fact that, well, this is also in the game. It's an unbelievably similar kit with a location poking type sub-weapon and Reef Slider, and Tetra's ability to roll 4 times and shoot while it's rolling gives it unbelievable fighting ability in enemy terrain and allows it to play hyper-aggressive, which is something the kit is really good at. The only arguments Dapple really has is that the main weapon has a bit better damage per second, Torpedo's a slightly different sub, and it's a 10 points for special cheaper Reef Slider, but none of those are great arguments. Unfortunately, I just don't really see a reason to pick Dapple Nouveau when Tetra just exists in the same game, and because of that, it's pretty much permanently stuck in low tier. It's an unfortunate fate, but at least it's somewhat fun if you're playing it in a solo queue environment. At number 9, and just barely breaking into what I'd call mid tier, is the Luna Blaster Neo. This main weapon is pretty solid, it's good at poking under corners, and does have the ability to one-shot up close, though it does have very weak paint, range, and even the mobility isn't that great. Like with Dapple's, the sub-weapon is a great start. Fizzy Bomb gives you a little bit of a trout for mobility and can be used to poke opponents or paint for its special, but the special here is Ultra Stamp. This is again on the weaker half of specials, but in this case it also doesn't really make too much sense with a Luna. Stamp is great at killing people when it's close to them and dealing with people above it on a ledge, but those are two situations Luna is already good at. Stamp does have good damage per second and a throw mode, which are useful, but Luna's damage per second isn't actually that bad either, so it's kind of a weird pick. It is 180p though, so it'll at least be easy to charge it, but I think the weapons that can make Ultra Stamp work right now are mainly highly mobile ones that can get into really annoying spots to make up for the special's huge vulnerability and need to get next to your opponent. Next up is the Gold Aerospray. This will definitely be a really good turf war weapon, but since we're mostly looking at competitive play on the ranked modes, it's a lot harder. Yes, it does have the Booyah spam, especially since it has Sprinkler as a sub-weapon, but that's kinda all it has. For its range value, even if all the shots hit, Aerospray actually has a pretty mediocre kill time, and it isn't the greatest fighter. The problem with this paint spam playstyle is it lacks a bomb, which means while it's painting around, it's not going to be able to poke or put any pressure on enemies, making it very easy to avoid and ultimately making it really struggle. The Booyah spam has to be super worth it. And while right now, most of the time it's better to just pick a weapon like Machine that might not have the output, but is a significantly better main and sub-weapon combination. Finally, for this tier, we have the Forge Splattershot Pro. I was super hopeful for this kit, but it is still on a Pro. I've talked about this main weapon a ton in its own video, so I'll direct you there as to talk about why it's not the greatest. Like I said at the end of it, I think this kit could give it some potential to be used since it'd have a faster Booyah output, but that niche has already shrunk even smaller because for whatever reason, this weapon is 210 points for special. If it was like 20 points cheaper for special, I think this would have a potential niche, at least for the time being, so it's really a shame they made it so unnecessarily expensive. At least with a bomb and a powerful special, I think it'll potentially have some niches, but it really needs a reduction in how much its special costs for the future. Alright though, with those 4 weapons out of the way, I think everything else has a pretty reasonable niche and could be argued to be high tier if pushed properly. So let's start with the Ink Brush. This weapon's clearly similar to the Brush Nouveau Splatoon 2, with ink mines and a survivability special. In that game, it utilized its cheap 180p baller to be an absolute nuisance and difficult to kill, constantly focusing the enemy team to look in the opposite direction. But in this game, it has Ultra Stamp. I won't sugarcoat it, this is a downgrade, as Baller helped it get in when it didn't have map control due to the extra HP it had, while Stamp is still vulnerable and not really the best entry tool. However, due to the maneuverability of the main weapon, you can have better spots to use Ultra Stamp if you do get in, and the throne mode when you're behind someone is actually quite threatening. Basically, this weapon, if it gets behind the enemy lines, can be an absolute nightmare nightmare. However, it has practically no tools to get there, and if it can't get there, it's gonna not be doing too much. I see this as a nice alternate to the vanilla kit's playstyle, and I think it's very comp dependent, but does have some uses, so I'd put this around the bottom of high tier. Next up is another fan favorite, the Zinc Mini Splatling, based off the Zimmy from Splatoon 1 with Disruptor and Big Bubbler, and it's just as great a combo here, with Bubble being amazing with the weapon's high strafe speed, protecting it, and letting it be a hybrid of aggressive and supportive playstyles. This is especially relevant because there's no bubble weapon that can fight super well and also spam the bubble. It's usually just one or the other, and Mini is the first one to do both. It's also worth noting that Mini is a great main weapon that's fast, with good paint, and just overall very solid. However, why is it only at number 5? Well, it's because it has Toxic Mist. Mist doesn't paint, so it's not going to help it get its bubbles a lot, and it doesn't deal damage, meaning it's going to really struggle against things like HP specials. And even the slowdown effect it has right now isn't that great, and Squid Roll can do a good job of getting through most of the mist. The mist is not enough to stop it, and he rolls right into the lead. Toxic Mist can slow you down, but if you squid roll into it, it doesn't really do a whole lot. Unfortunately, one of the many problems with the sub, I really mean it when I say this hampers the weapon. If it had a better sub, even something that isn't a bomb, I feel like it would be significantly higher. The good news is, Mist does make sense with Mini in terms of slowing down for a fast weapon to catch up, so if they buff the sub to be good later on, I could see this being a much scarier combo. For now, if you need both bubble output and a weapon that can fight, I think Mini is still a great option. And right at the end of our high tiers is the Slosher Deco. Now this kit is actually pretty interesting, as Angle Shooter can combo with the main weapon, and the location effect it has is pretty useful for it, making it the best weapon for Angle Shooter that we've seen so far. However, I won't sugarcoat it, the sub-weapon is incredibly weak, situational, often not worth the use, and for Bucket, it's not going to be at the same angles, and even more importantly, one sub-bomb defense will break this combo if it ever becomes super relevant. Same for if the Slosher has any amount of drop-off damage. There is no room for error here. However, Zipcaster is pretty good with it. Not only does it combo well with the main weapon, but the arc Slosher does is really easy to get with the amount of versatility that Zipcaster has, especially since your main weapon now uses less ink than it did pre-patch. The devs are also smart enough to make the special 180p. Considering it as a sub that doesn't paint too well and it's a bucket, it would really struggle getting a lot of Zipcasters otherwise, and this is a big saving grace for the kit that moved it up this list. Zip still could be buffed a little bit more, but mainly Angle Shooter is the thing that needs to be a lot better. But if those were fixed, I could definitely see it being top tier, and right now I think it's a good niche that can deal with Crab very well. We've reached the top 3, starting with the Carbon Deco, with a throwback to the original Carbon kit of Burst Bomb and Trizooka. Anyone who's played either of the previous games knows how ridiculous a Burst Bomb combo is with Carbon, and it's even more so here. Painting, poking, comboing, mobility, it does all of it. And on top of that, Zuka helps Carbon deal with something it can't deal with normally, range. It's the perfect option for taking out long distance opponents. The weapon of course still can't paint and can struggle to get in, but the kit definitely gives it a lot of opportunities to do something in situations it struggles with. I would say the main weakness of this weapon is because of its aggressive playstyle, limited paint, and 200p, it's not going to get a lot of Zukas. And on top of that, Zuka is a special that's really hard to get consistent value out of, meaning I'm not sure just how well Carbon is going to be able to get consistent picks with it. It will also struggle with certain comps, especially on Splatoon 3's maps that can be difficult to move in on.
What you don't see is a Carbon. Instead, you're seeing Volty come out with the machine. I don't know if you want to see Volty on the machine or Carbon. Both seem pretty deadly at the same time.
Regardless, I still think it's a top tier weapon. At number 2 is the Custom Splattershot Junior. Now I know Junior on paper doesn't seem like that great a weapon, and yeah, it's not amazing. It can't really fight super well, and its painting range is fairly limited even if it does paint well. However, it has great mobility and is an amazing support tool, and on top of that, it has a 180p special, meaning it can charge it exceptionally fast. The kit on this thing just feels like a direct answer to Ninja Squid, with Torpedo allowing you to find weapons quite easily, especially since Junior has a 10% larger ink tank, as well as giving it combos and a get off me tool that, while it's not as lethal as Splat Bomb, can still do reliable damage to help you kill opponents running at you. Wavebreaker is really where it shines though. It can spam it more than any other weapon, and the damage can allow Junior to be a two-shot, making it an actual real kill threat. And on top of that, Wavebreaker is really good at dealing with Ninja Squid, something the Torpedo already is also good at, making it really difficult for Ninja Squid players to sneak in with this weapon on the map. On top of that, it has really great matchups against blasters that have to rely on jumping, and dualies that don't want to stay grounded against Wavebreaker but are forced to due to their dodge rolls, making it good against those weapon classes. If Custom Junior's fighting stuff that doesn't rely on stealth and doesn't get super hard countered by Wavebreaker, it's going to be more mediocre, but it shuts down a lot of relevant comps and weapons right now, and is an especially great counter to Ninja Squid comps, which I think is really interesting, and it's a lot better than people give it credit for. At number 1 is the the T-Tech. Well, it's the Splatoon 1 Wasabi. This thing has Splat Bomb, and it's a splatter shot. One of the best main weapons and very versatile, and it's with one of the best sub-weapons in the game. Splat Bomb is absolutely amazing at poking people, keeping people off you, and dealing damage, and with its high speed, it's really great with T-Tech in particular since it can combo with it for a two-shot. On top of that, it's surprisingly cheap for triple ink strike, being 190p. Yup, it's lower than Brella. That's absolutely incredible. Anyway, Tri-Strike is a great way to deal with long-range threats, help combat HP specials, and overall give its team good entry tools. And since it's so cheap on a weapon that paints well and has a reliable bomb, it's gonna get a ton of these. I think that the reason it might be so low points for special is because it's trying to be an answer to HP specials, since Tri-Strike can be great against Booyah Bomb and Crab Tank. And I really think we're gonna see a lot of T-Tech to try to deal with the rampant amounts of crab we've been seeing recently. It's just a unique kit that stands out from the current one it has brand new usefulness, and is great in the current meta, making it my number 1 pick. And that's my list. Overall, I like the kit design because I think there's a lot of good ideas that make sense, but some of the pieces like weaker subs and specials definitely need some buffs first. I will say I dislike that 4 out of the 10 weapon kits were shooters, the class with already the most weapons in the game, but that's a topic for when I discuss the 3-month update cycle as a whole. So for now, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.